vigilant. With that backdrop, let's bring back in Elliott Abrams right now. And Elliott, thanks for being with us. And we know your specialty is foreign policy, national security, things of that nature. But in so many cases in the past couple of years, it's been local law enforcement that has really been on the front lines of keeping everybody safe. So many times they've stumbled upon something and said, this doesn't seem right. We know a lot of local police forces and sheriff's offices have ties with the FBI and counterterrorism folks, including the NYPD. So there is a new threat, maybe not new, but a newly intensified threat on these police officers. It's in a lot of their minds right now. How does this affect their ability to do their job? Because part of that job is looking out for things like domestic terrorism.
You're absolutely right, and particularly in New York. The New York Police Department is the best in the country in its intelligence division and in its counterterrorism activities. Morale is critical to that. And I think morale has just plummeted under Mayor de Blasio. I mean, he took a stance basically against the police department. That's how he ran for office. He's got a lot of ground to make up. His protests over the last month or two have basically been anti-NYPD. And you saw how the officers reacted in turning their backs on him. The mayor seems to realize that now, and he's trying to make up for lost time. But he has a lot of ground to recover if he's going to get NYPD morale back to where it used to be under the previous mayors.
Yeah, well, let's listen to something that Mayor Bill de Blasio recently said, outspoken, as you mentioned, what you and other folks would call the anti-police rhetoric. He used yesterday's press conference as an opportunity to try and ease tensions. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
The attack on them was an attack on all of us. It was an attack on our democracy. It was an attack on our values. It was an attack on every single New Yorker. And we have to see it as such.
Well, some might say too little, too late. Elliott, what was your take?
Well, it's the right thing to say, and we all agree with that. And this was just a horrendous incident. But you can't take that position now and then change it and go back and forth and back and forth. The question is whether the mayor really stands behind the NYPD every day, 365 days a year. The answer was no. If this causes him to change his position, then that would be a positive outcome.
And you don't see any evidence of the mayor changing his position?
Well, he's saying the right thing now because the city is feeling so terrible over the tragedy of these two officers. Let's see where we are 3 months from now. Let's see where we are the next time, Al Sharpton comes to town and makes a protest. I think that's the critical thing. The mayor basically took sides with Sharpton against the NYPD. He's got to change that.
Now, of course, all this is also playing out, and we talked about the city of New York specifically, and that has been called out as one of the possible terror targets by transnational terrorist groups. What do you think right now, what else is going on inside the PD without revealing sources and methods? How do you think they are working with this backdrop trying to keep that city safe?
Well, the hard part, of course, is not going after in a sense, the conspiracies, particularly foreign ones, because they do that every day. I mean, that's the work of the intelligence division, the counterterrorism task forces that they have in New York. That's NYPD, FBI, CIA, and everyone else. The hard part is this new thing of the lone gunman, who may not have really done much planning and just goes out to kill. And there you just have to ask the public in part to be alert. That is, family members and neighbors who see something or hear something, that the caution to all of us, if you see something, say something. That doesn't just mean if you see someone you think is a foreign terrorist. It can be a neighbor. It can be someone who lives in your apartment house who's just gone off the deep end.
Yeah, and another reminder, again, to be vigilant. And you can really see where this issue transects or comes together, because you have an NYPD police officer now on the street. As many folks who've been in New York this time of year, they're out in force anyway. In the back of their mind, they're thinking about, is somebody going to walk up behind me now with these protests still going on? And we've seen video of protesters in the street calling for dead police, and now they're also having to be vigilant, looking out for these types of threats.
It just makes the job a great deal harder. And look, it's a terribly hard job anyway. And the one thing they had with mayors like Ed Koch and Rudy Giuliani and Michael Bloomberg was at least the knowledge that the mayor understood it completely and was behind them. And
Well,
they
we
need
got to
get
go,
this
Elliott,
passed.
and it does certainly seem a different administration for sure in New York City. Thanks so much for being
Yep.
with us. Happy holidays to you, sir.